This video is brought to you by Tom and Toys and Comics. Do you guys remember Tharsdays? Now, for those who don't remember, there was a time where Cartoon Network had this thing called Tharsdays, which is basically just new episodes of cartoons, but these were some of the best cartoons in the world. This is back when Cartoon Network was not doing very well with their live-action shows, and this was a little bit before they started showing shows like Adventure Time or Regular Show. But when I was a kid, what makes Tharsdays so cool is that this was something that me and my friends would always look forward to after school. Coming home from such a long day of work, and they gave us some of the best kids shows around that time. And like I said, this was at a bad time when Cartoon Network was not doing very well. So looking back at these shows was kind of an experience. So what I'm going to do today is give you guys my opinions on the Tharsdays cartoons that came around that time. I may miss a couple here and there, but I'm only doing the really important ones today. So here are my thoughts on every single Tharsdays cartoon. Let's start off with our first cartoon with Chowder. Of all the shows that I'll be talking about on this list, Chowder was the one I used to watch the most as a kid. In fact, it was the first show to start Tharsdays. I used to watch this show a lot as a kid, and looking back onto it, it's a lot more funnier than I remember. And you know what? I'm not the only one that says that. There are so many videos and so many things online that were inspired by Chowder. The one thing that Chowder was mostly known for was its fourth wall breaks. And it's like almost in every single episode. Don't believe me? There's a compilation online if y'all need to go look for it. But yeah, that's what the show was mostly known for. But that's not the only thing that most people remember Chowder for. It was for its characters, its writing, its style. I mean, this kind of reminded me a lot of Flapjack, which we're going to get to in a second. And speaking of Flapjack, also like Flapjack, I don't know if it's just me, but I get a lot of SpongeBob vibes from it. Really think about it. Our main character wants to be a chef, he's happy-and-go-lucky, and he's just the definition of fun. So yeah, despite the SpongeBob similarities, Chowder's a really good show to look back on. If you haven't seen any episodes of it, I say go buy the DVD or watch it on HBO Max somewhere. But yeah, Chowder was definitely one of my favorites growing up. If you haven't seen the show, go buy the DVD or watch it on HBO Max. Now let's get into Flapjack. The thing with Flapjack was that, out of all the cartoons I've seen in my life, this was the one that always scared the shit out of me. Oh, I'm not talking about the animation or anything. The animation looks great. It's just the stories and the characters and everything about it always creeped me out as a kid. But that was kind of the fun thing about Flapjack. The whole show is about these two sailors, one a boy and one is obviously a pirate, going on these dangerous adventures while also searching for this candy island. It's just so crazy that you can't just look away. It's just so entertaining. Of course, as I grew older, I started to watch the show again, and it's still better than I remember. Though kind of like Chowder, even though technically it's taking elements from SpongeBob, it is a fine show on its own, and it still had its own identity. Though I think the one important thing about this show were the people involved. You see this little graph right here? This was the Flapjack family. So a lot of these people would go on to create their own cartoons, either on Cartoon Network or on Disney Channel. So this kind of started a new renaissance for cartoons, and I gotta give Flapjack some credit for that. So while not my favorite of the 5 shows, this is a really good one to check out if you want to see something different. Go check it out on DVD or HBO Max, and you'll have a crazy fun time. Now let's talk about Total Drama Island. Now, Total Drama Island didn't have a really new concept. Reality TV was nothing new at the time. In fact, animation-wise, Drawn Together and Life'sAZoo.tv were the first ones to do reality TV. But Total Drama was the first time where it tried to be appealing to both kids and adults. Well, secretly for adults, but you get the idea. Total Drama at least had its own identity. And while the characters were very stereotypical, most of them were at least able to handle the show on their own. I feel so bad for this series because it's already been milked dry with so many shows, and of course you had that baby spinoff, which is pretty devastating to watch. But as far as the original show goes, it's really good. It still holds up even to this day, and I know I've seen a lot of memes and noticed that the show has gained a lot of a fan base. Now, I will admit, it's not my favorite of the group as well, though the one thing that I always remember Total Drama for is like how really adult it was. I mean, it's not too inappropriate, but it's also not too child-friendly as well. I remember a lot of adult jokes and adult scenes that kind of went over my head as a kid, and my parents were cool with me watching this show. So, not my favorite show of the 5 cartoons, but definitely one worth checking out if you want to see something different. Go check it out for what it's worth and have a good time. The next show on our list is Johnny Test. I know I'm going to get a lot of flags for saying this. I actually really like this show. I don't think it's great, and I think that it does have its flaws, but at the same time, I actually really enjoyed this show growing up. And that's crazy because this show has some sort of a following, even to this day. Think of it as Dexter's Laboratory meets Jimmy Neutron, but in Flash. The show had a lot of good ideas and some fun characters. I never really liked Johnny Test as a main character, but I tolerate him okay. And yeah, I will admit, the effects, like the whipping in it, are very annoying. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just look it up. And yeah, there are some jokes that are really juvenile, but I can't act like I didn't like this show, because there's a lot to it. Even if it's not original, they try to do some unique and different things to it. So, while I don't think Johnny Test is the strongest show, I do kind of have to admire all the ideas that they have in the show. There's an episode where Johnny has to grow hair for a mustache in order to go to a movie, and he ends up actually causing a Bling Bling Boy, which, yeah, he's become a meme now, who gets really hairy, and it causes this big chaos, and it's just really crazy to watch. So if you haven't seen the show yet, go check it out. I say there's at least 1 or 2 episodes that you may like. The last show I want to talk about is 16. I'll just go ahead and say it, guys. 16 was the one I watched the least growing up. It's not a bad show, and I actually do like it as an adult. It's just, I wouldn't call this a kid's show. This had the same team that worked on Total Drama Island, and it really shows. If you thought Total Drama had the most innuendos and jokes, this show had it all. There was a couple, I remember a few swear words from the show, I remember a lot of adult themes, and of course, the fact that this stars 16-year-olds, it kind of felt like a Disney or Nickelodeon sitcom. But as a show on its own, even something that's not a sitcom, it's kind of fun to watch. The show centered around 6 16-year-olds working at a mall, going on these crazy adventures, and it's more of a slice of life kind of show. But they had some new take and twists and turns to it, and I can appreciate that. The characters were fine, though I do know the fact that they would go on to cross over with Total Drama at some point, I think. But that's probably in the baby spinoff, which we're not going to talk about here. Well, 16, there's not really much to talk about 16, except it's kind of your typical early 2000s show with teens, which that was kind of the big thing for a while. If you like shows like that, you're probably going to like it here, but 16 was a good show. Also, that theme song hits hard. So, overall, guys, I feel bad that not many people remember this. It's so hard not to forget it. Yeah, for those who don't remember it, it's been a long time, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad I remember these shows. I remember this block. It brought me back so many memories watching all these kids shows. I feel bad that it didn't last as long as it did. It only lasted from 2008 to 2010. But at the same time, I had some really good fun memories watching these shows and having some good times living as a child watching them after school every Thursday night. So, while I do recommend most of these cartoons, they are kind of hard to find, and yes, they are pretty much canceled. I do recommend at least trying at least most of them. So if there's one thing I want to tell Cartoon Network, thank you for all the childhood memories you've given me. Our Tharsdays may not be around anymore, but at least it will still be around in my memories.